Top boxing news.
Ow! Okay, we'll start with this. Well, on the prelim card of this past weekend's lightweight fight between Gervonta Davis and Isaac Cruz, former multi-weight champion Ava Knight made her big ring return after a 2-year hiatus, a 2-year stint of inactivity against Nancy Franco de Alba. Journeywoman opponent with losses in the double digits, the kind of opponent you expect a fighter to face after such a long stint of inactivity.
It was a while.
Ava was able to secure the W. She won a unanimous decision in this 6th rounder. Ava was last in action before this fight in November of 2019, and that way it had been roughly 2 years since Ava had a fight. In 2019, I believe Ava fought something like 3 times, but she hadn't fought at all last year and hadn't fought for most of this year. But she is back. This was a bantamweight contest.
Ava's back.
Ava Knight, who sports a professional record of 20 wins, 2 losses with 5 draws, never been stopped. Former champion who has held the IBF flyweight title from 2011 to 2012 and has challenged 4 world titles in 3 weight divisions, 3 weight classes. The WBC female super flyweight title in 2009, the WBO female bantamweight title 2011, and the WBC female light flyweight title in 2013.
She debuted as a professional way back when in 2007.
In that way, Ava Knight is a 14-year veteran of the sport. Feels like she's been around forever.
And she's only 33 years old.
You heard that right. As accomplished as Ava Knight already is, and having been a veteran of the sport for about 14 years, she's still got a lot of good years left. She's only 33 years old. She dabbled in mixed martial arts very briefly, though it seems she shifted her focus back onto the squared circle,
The boxing ring.
Given that she's only 33 years old, the kind of experiences she's had, the kind of scalps she has collected, fighters she's shared the ring with. She fought Kalisha West to a split decision, knocked out Arely Musinho, Mexico's own Arely Musinho, decisioned Barbie Juarez. She's only ever lost 2 fights in 27 professional contests, 27 professional bouts, one to Ana Maria Torres and another to Ibeth Zamora Silva, a very accomplished fighter in her own respect, in her own right. Ava Knight brings experience to the table that money can't buy.
Because she's only 33 years old, she's got plenty of time to line herself up for a world title.
And more than enough experience to boot. She is one of the more formidable fighters that are out there, having campaigned as a light flyweight, a flyweight, a super flyweight, and as high as a bantamweight. Bantamweight, where her last contest took place, the one she had this past weekend. You ask me what the ideal weight for Ava might be moving forward, where the most opportunities might lie, and I would have to say it's at bantamweight more so than the aforementioned weights, more so than super flyweight, flyweight, or light flyweight. Ava's 33 years old. She's still got many good years left, though I don't think it would be very healthy for her to try to make those lower weights, super flyweight, flyweight, and light flyweight.
There aren't as many opportunities down there for her either.
There are champions. There are plenty of champions down there to choose from, plenty of champions to go around, and Ava Knight could conceivably beat one of them after 1 or 2 more tune-up fights. She very well could. But the bantamweight division presents a unique opportunity for Ava that some of those other divisions don't. The chance to fight on a major platform. That major platform I'm thinking of is DAZN. In the bantamweight division, DAZN Matchroom, they have at least 1 or 2 ponies in that show. Former WBA champion Shannon Courtenay, who's going to be having a rematch with reigning champion Jamie Mitchell at some point next year, and Australia's own Ebony Bridges. It's conceivable to me that Ava Knight could make herself a fixture, a somebody in the bantamweight division, and at 33 years old, I think that it might be easier to make bantamweight than super fly, or light flyweight.
Because Ava is a mommy now.
There's that. It's also a question of finance. There's more money being poured into the bantamweight division right now than at super fly, or light fly.
Ava has time.
And before you guys out there accuse me of being a wide-eyed optimist for thinking Ava Knight still has enough time and enough upside to not only fight for a world title, but win one, need I remind you, Ava's only 33 years old. The reigning IBF champion at bantamweight, Ceci Roman of Argentina, she's 38 years old. She's pushing 40. Ebony Bridges, everybody's favorite Australian. Ebony Bridges, who's fast become a bit of a darling over there in the United Kingdom. She's actually older than Ava Knight, too. She's 35 years old, though nowhere near as experienced. Neither Ebony Bridges or Cecilia Roman bring as much experience to the table as Ava Knight.
So I think she can do it.
I know that there is a bit of a score to settle between Ava Knight and reigning WBC flyweight champion Marlena Esparza. There's a feud between them that spans years. But I'll tell you, the flyweight division don't present as much opportunity for Ava Knight as the bantamweight division.
I don't know if she's going to stay there.
It's not unusual for a fighter to come back at a heavier weight than their usual weight after a long hiatus, after a long stint of inactivity. I don't know if it's Ava's plan to move back down to those lower weights, but the bantamweight division does have more opportunity. There is more money being poured into that division than either Superfly, Fly, or Light Fly. So we'll see what happens. But I do think Ava Knight is fully capable of becoming a full-fledged world champion again.
She just needs to build off this victory in 2022.
In heavyweight news, I'm sure most of you have heard by now that Deontay Wilder admits there are mixed feelings on fighting again. While he sits on the sidelines, Wilder's figuring out his future in the sport. It's mixed feelings because ultimately I have accomplished all my goals in this sport. I told my daughter when she was 1 that I'd be a champion and I'd be able to support her beyond her belief, Wilder stated during Kevin Hart's show on the Laugh Out Loud network. I've done the things I promised my daughter. There's a lot of things that I've accomplished that I feel I don't have to prove anything to anyone because I've already proven it to myself. Should I push forward? Should I give it a go one more time? Or should I just retire and focus on the other things that I already have? Other things that I want to get into. There are still plenty of opportunities for Wilder in the heavyweight division. Wilder's co-manager, Shelly Finkel, expects his boxer to return to the ring in 2022. He believes Wilder's next fight is very likely to take place in the first half of the coming year. And
Is he actually going to do that?
we can't broach this subject without revisiting some of the older subjects we've discussed here on the channel. That Deontay Wilder could have made a lot more money had he not dicked up the Anthony Joshua fight. A fight that was bigger financially, bigger in scale than what the Tyson Fury trilogy turned out to be. That had Deontay Wilder decided to take Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and DAZN up on their offer, who knows what would have happened, could have happened, but at minimum, we know he would have made more money fighting Anthony Joshua.
Hell, before DAZN even got involved, they offered him an April date at Wembley.
That's before DAZN offered him that $100 million. If he would have taken them up on that date, Anthony Joshua would have never went on to try and fight Big Baby Miller, which subsequently turned into Andy Ruiz. He wouldn't have lost that fight. He would have went into that Wilder fight unbeaten. For Deontay Wilder, he could have easily used the undisputed fight with Anthony Joshua to circumvent his mandatory challenger, Dominic Breazeale, but he chose what he chose, so here we are. He left a lot of money on the table not fighting Anthony Joshua, though in truth, he has been successful enough, made enough money doing what he's done, that he can retire. It's my understanding he owns some land down there in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he's trying his hand at entrepreneurship. I've even heard rumors and rumblings about acting, perhaps making an appearance in a Rocky movie.
I'm not surprised to hear he's entertaining retirement.
For me, this is confirmation of what I always thought. All those rumors and rumblings we've been hearing about as of late, that Deontay Wilder is pursuing a court case against Tyson Fury for Glovegate, the Glovegate conspiracy as a whole. All of that was hot air.
Yeah.
All of that was crap.
There's never any substance to that shit.
Same way I felt that there was never any substance to Deontay Wilder's claim that he sought to unify the division, that he wanted there to be one face, one name, and one champion.
There's never any substance to that shit.
Never was. Deontay Wilder has only ever lost to one man, one fighter, just one fighter.
Different guys are built differently.
And I said as much in the build-up of the third fight, that should Deontay Wilder suffer yet another defeat at the hands of Tyson Fury, if he gets beat in the third fight the same way he got beat in the second fight or worse, this guy ain't gonna stick around for much longer.
Now look what he's saying.
There are other fights out there for Deontay Wilder that are lucrative opportunities for him, though ultimately, if the desire, the burning desire in his belly to continue to fight, if that's not there, sticking around would be a very dangerous proposition, even against the likes of an Andy Ruiz.
Well, some people tell you Wilder knocks him smooth out.
But these days, I'm not so sure. Opposite the ring, you may have a man who wants to take your head, clean off your shoulders while you're focused on other things, other endeavors. Hell, you probably don't even want to be here.
Boxing ain't the kind of profession where you can just go through the motions.
Just go through the motions. Go through the motions in camp, in training. Go through the motions. Just go through the motions under the hot lights while the world watches. Boxing ain't the kind of profession to where you can just punch in a clock and go through the motions. You have to want it. You have to want to be there.
You have to.
It's already a very dangerous occupation with many occupational hazards, and not wanting to be there would just be one among them. It's an even more dangerous proposition to continue to fight when you really don't want to, when your mind is on other things. So if Deontay Wilder is in such a place, psychologically, to where he's ready to move on to the next chapter of his life, perhaps that is what's best. I mean, there are any number of good fights, entertaining fights, and possible paydays out there for Deontay Wilder.
Yeah.
Andy Ruiz Jr. among them. An in-house fight that shouldn't be too hard to make and bill as a pay-per-view. And for what it's worth, I actually think it could do considerable business. But if the fight itself, has been beaten out of Deontay Wilder by Tyson Fury, then maybe the best thing for him to do is retire.
Maybe it is.
Deontay Wilder's potential retirement, walking away from the sport of boxing, if he doesn't return in the first half of next year, if he decides to call it a career very soon, well, that leaves the PBC's relationship with Fox rather strained.
What does that really leave them with?
Danny Garcia, who's never really been to the Puerto Rican fans what Felix Trinidad was. Keith Thurman, inactive Keith Thurman, quasi-retired Keith Thurman, who hasn't fought in the last 2 years. Injury-prone Errol Spence Jr., who may be circling the drain himself. What does that really leave the PBC with?
In terms of marquee attractions and marquee fighters.
Guys who have actually been on pay-per-view before and have proven they can sell a few. If Deontay Wilder exits stage left, what incentive is there for Fox to stay in bed with the PBC beyond next year? Fox, who didn't release much in terms of a schedule this year.
I'm really not expecting them to next year.
They've got that Luis Ortiz versus Charles Martin pay-per-view coming up early next year, but that pay-per-view, even at an altered price point, because it's not $75, something like $40, I think, but even with that, that's a tough sell.
I think they're still trying to find a way to make Spence versus Ugas.
I'm to be honest with you, Ugas ain't really got that many fans. You know, if anybody sold that Pacquiao pay-per-view, it's safe to say that it was Manny Pacquiao, and that pay-per-view, it didn't sell all that much. To begin with, Errol Spence Jr., he's become an injury-prone fighter, suffered a detached retina in preparation to fight Manny Pacquiao whilst wearing headgear. What does that say about his longevity? What does that communicate? You look at the stable, the state of it, and imagine that Deontay Wilder retires in the immediate future, the very near future, and that doesn't leave Fox with much incentive to stay in bed with the PBC beyond next year. And it's a palpable possibility.
This guy might really retire.
Now, one guy who's not contemplating retirement is IBF middleweight champion Gennady Golovkin, who says he feels great, not even thinking about retirement. Bear in mind, he's pushing 40.
He's older than Deontay Wilder.
I'm surprised to hear that he's not thinking about calling it a career. The postponed fight with Murata is now being targeted for the first quarter of 2022. It's a major fight over there in the land of the rising sun. He was quoted as saying, "I'm deeply disappointed that this fight has been postponed, but the health and safety of the public must always be the priority. I look forward to returning to the ring against Ryota as soon as possible," Golovkin stated when confirming the postponement. Despite his age, Golovkin still feels he's at the top of his game, but he'll map out his future based on his performance in the upcoming fight with Murata. I'll be looking closely at myself. I'm extremely fit right now. I feel great, and of course, all my career decisions will be based on how I feel. Currently, I feel great, Golovkin told The Sun. All my decisions will be regarded as the right decision by me. Whether I want to continue and take part in a fight, I will regard that as the right decision. If I want to conclude my career, that will also be the right decision. I am comfortable right now with my career is progressing, what's happening, and I'm sure whatever I do will be right for me. Gennady Golovkin admits that he still enjoys the ability to go away for a tough training camp. It's just a way for me to get away from my family and concentrate on the training process, as I have a large family at home. It's somewhat distracting, to be honest. Of course, there are certain details and nuances. We approach each opponent a little bit differently, although there is a foundation of training which is always part of the camp, Golovkin said. Golovkin, who's not quite ready for the quiet life at home.
Not yet, anyway.
But at this stage of his career, he's not in the people-pleasing business either. He's doing whatever he deems fit whatever he deems right for him. And right now, it's not Demetrius Andrade, it's not Jermall Charlo, it's Ryota Murata, and it's what I always told you. A Ryota Murata fight is of a much, much greater financial value to Gennady Golovkin in Japan than a fight with Demetrius or Jermall is in America, and it really is that simple.
I don't think Gennady's losing sleep over what the critics are saying.
Critics like me who feel he didn't have to sit out all of 2021. He could have fought Demetrius Andrade, and that Murata fight, it wasn't going to go anywhere. It was still going to be there, but he decided to sit out the whole year, and now he hasn't fought at all in 2021.
I don't think he gives a shit what I think.
Or anyone else for that matter. The question is, if he beats Ryota Murata in Ryota Murata's neck of the woods, depending on how he performs, if he dispatches him quite easily, does he unify thereafter? And with all this talk of Andrade versus Janibek being ordered by the WBO and Demetrius potentially moving up to super middleweight, I don't see Gennady Golovkin unifying titles with his countryman Janibek should Janibek be elevated to full WBO champion. I don't see that happening, but what could happen?
Carlos Adames beat Sergey Didivianchenko last weekend.
Sergey, who was tabbed to face Jaime Munguia, should he have beat Carlos, and what would have been a WBC final eliminator to crown a mandatory challenger for Jermall Charlo's belt. With Carlos having won the fight, you have to wonder if Adames versus Munguia doesn't get ordered. And if it does, let's just say that Jaime Munguia wins the fight. And let's go a little further. Let's say that Jermall Charlo decides to move up in weight the same way that Demetrius Andrade plans on moving up in weight. What could then happen if Munguia were to make it past Carlos Adames could be a unification match with Gennady Golovkin. Gennady, who they were in talks to fight before. I could see something like that happening, though that is a ways out. That is several steps.
It's one of the only ways I see Gennady participating in a unification match.
Right now, there's no ways near finding out if that's how all of this is going to break down.
We'll see.